35,000 feet over Manitoba, and both engines have stopped. No thrust. Most of the instruments dark. 69 people aboard, and 45 miles to the nearest place to put it down. It is a glider now, and everything it can still reach is inside the circle. It is closing. It had been fueled correctly by every measurement anyone took. The aeroplane was fine. The arithmetic was not. It begins in Montreal on the 23rd of July, 1983, with an aeroplane being made ready for a flight west. It is 4 months old and one of the first aircraft in Canada to measure its fuel in kilograms rather than pounds. Nothing about the aeroplane was wrong. Nothing about it would go wrong all evening. Nothing about it was wrong. The thing that was about to go wrong had already happened on the ground in a sum. Montreal, a stop at Ottawa, then west across the country to Edmonton. Canada was halfway through changing its units. Road signs had gone metric a few years earlier. Aviation had not. The fuel gauges did not work. A known fault, and one the aircraft was permitted to fly with, as long as the fuel was measured by hand. This is the flight deck of a 767. 2 of those instruments are fuel gauges, and on this aircraft, they were dark. The aircraft was allowed to fly like this. A blank gauge is a known condition with a known remedy. Measure it by hand and write it down. So they measured it by hand. 2 sticks under the wing, 1 per tank, 7,600 liters. But a liter is not a kilogram. Multiply by the wrong constant, and the tank is unchanged, but the aeroplane's belief about it is not. 20,000 liters should have gone into the tanks at Montreal. 5,000 went in. At Ottawa, they measured again, and the same multiplication was done a second time. The captain checked it himself on a circular slide rule. It came out the same. It was the wrong sum, done accurately. Nobody was careless. Every person in this chain did something that looked correct. 41,000 feet over Ontario, and everything is quiet. Then a warning. Fuel pressure, left engine. A pump can fail. A pump failing is ordinary. It is the reasonable thing to think, and it is wrong. A high bypass turbofan at cruise turns about 3,000 times a minute, and it does that by burning fuel. Take the fuel away, and it does not switch off. It runs down. The left engine stops. They turn for Winnipeg. A 767 flies perfectly well on one engine. Then the other one stops. They are at 35,000 feet, already descending, 65 miles from Winnipeg. Most of the electrical system goes with them. The screens go dark and leave a handful of standby dials. Neither pilot had heard the sound before. It is not a thing the simulator can make. There was no checklist for losing both engines. Nobody had written one, because nobody expected it to be needed. A passenger put it more plainly than the inquiry did. An aeroplane without engines is not falling. It is gliding, and a glide is a ratio. Height times that ratio is how far you can still get. From this altitude, that is a circle drawn on the ground. And the circle closes as they come down. Watch Winnipeg. Winnipeg goes out of reach. The first officer had served here years before and remembered a runway nobody else was thinking about. There was no computer left to work it out, and no instrument showing how fast they were sinking. So they did it out loud, with Winnipeg. Ask air traffic control the distance. Note the height. Ask again a minute later. The difference between those two numbers was the whole calculation. And then the opposite problem. too much height, and no way to spend it. No engines to throttle back, no time to circle. So the captain flew it sideways, a glider pilot's maneuver, crossing the controls to spill height without gaining speed. 45 miles with no engines, on a wing they had no performance figures for. Boeing has never published a glide ratio for this aircraft. Gimli had been an Air Force station. By 1983, half of it was something else entirely. The runway they were aiming at had been given to a motor club. There was a steel barrier down the middle of it and a race meeting on. The main gear fell and locked under its own weight. The nose gear did not. The procedure for dropping the gear by gravity was in the manual. It was not in the index, and he ran out of time looking. They came over the threshold with no engines, no nose wheel, and a steel barrier where the centerline should have been. The main wheels touched within 800 feet of the threshold, and the nose, which had never locked, folded the moment it met the ground. Sparks the length of the strip. The scraping did the braking. The brakes could not, and it is what stopped them short of the tents. The nose collapsed onto the strip. The scraping is what stopped them. With the nose down, the tail was high. The escape slides at the back did not reach the ground. The inquiry was blunt about how close this came to being a different story. Everyone aboard walked away. 16 recommendations came out of it. Most were not about arithmetic at all. Look at the chain again. Not one of these is a person being stupid. Break any single one of them, and there is no accident at all. That is what an accident usually is. The inquiry did not blame the men who did the arithmetic. It blamed the company they did it for. And it said so of the people at the sharp end, in as many words. Air Canada disciplined them anyway. The captain was demoted for 6 months. The first officer suspended for 2 weeks. 2 years later, the world's governing body for air sports created a new award for outstanding airmanship. They were the first people ever to receive it. And the fuel gauges? 18 months later, 2 newer 767s in the same fleet had logged 48 fuel system faults between them. The aircraft was repaired and flew for another 25 years. Its skin was cut into 10,000 numbered tags. The cockpit came home to Canada in 2025, and Captain Pearson met it at the border. The arithmetic was the only thing that failed. Everything after it was people, and the people held.